Okay, you have to sing a song.
Okay.
Yeah, so that people can hear, so that they know that we're there, and I can tell that they hear by chatting. So, this is Deke Weaver, and he and I are going to sing a little song here, and you're going to tell us how bad it is. What song do you know, Deke? All day I face the barren waste without a taste of water. Cool water. Right.
We're here. We're here. Keep talking? Okay, I'm talking. I'm talking. Hello, everybody. Here we are. We're out at we have dogs. We have people walking by. We have lawns and forest rings and trees and mountains and the big sky. Keep playing.
Oh, Dan and I with throats burned dry and souls that cry for water. Cool, clear water. Keep the movement, Dan. Don't you listen to him, man. He's a devil, not a man, and he spreads the burning sand.
Water.
Water. Dan, get to see the big green trees.
La 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 la. Car salesman, ships, that sort of thing. And then you come.
Theater?
It's actually I teach in the School of Art and Design and at University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign.
And Urbana-Champaign is where in Illinois?
Well, it's East Central Illinois, so it's about 45 minutes from the Indiana border. It's 2.5 hours.
Of course, I'm real nosy about life, and I'm sticking my nose into any little conversations that are going on around the house. And I intercepted this email to bring about and to engage people in biology and in basically the emotional, the sentimental, the science.
So, and they're pretty big undertakings. Some of them we did elephant, and we did wolf this past September, and now I'm with going and it almost feels like a big Roman amphitheater. An interview with an elephant.
Uh-huh.
We had a big an elephant puppet that was life-size, 12 feet high. It took 5 people to remove the puppet. So it was just trying to get people involved, get audiences, not just sitting in a chair and watching it, but kind of getting them physically involved in it.
It's participatory. I haven't been to one. I'd love to come, and I will one day. In fact, I hope.
And those big site-specific events are they take a lot of fundraising and gathering of forces, and we think a lot about the place itself. So we can build things into parts of the woods, or build things into. For Wolf, we had put people on a bus, took them on a 40-minute bus trip where the rangers were telling them about things. We had things on the video monitors in the bus, and then we walked people through the woods, like a 30-minute walk in the woods that kind of led off in different directions and brought them back together for these things that happen in a barn. So being able to replicate that in different places would take a lot of time and money. So it felt like we'll give the full push for those, for Wolf, both Wolf and Elephant. We only did them 5 days, but we document them really well with DSLR. So even with these new cameras, high-def cameras, you can get really beautiful footage, and with multiple cameras, and then I'll edit them together, and then with that, there's 2 different things. We'll make a full DVD that is like a documentation of the full performance. But then what I've done with Wolf is I'm making a smaller version, like a one-man version, where it's part documentation, video documentation, of the live event, but then also I'm there telling some of the stories. So it's kind of a combination of storytelling and film. So some people are starting to call this sort of thing live cinema. And so I've been able to do this in lots of different places. I've done it for very small groups in living rooms, but I've also done it in movie theaters. But you can also go into classrooms and different kinds of auditoriums and stuff. So it feels like it's an easier way of getting ideas about the bigger things so people can get a taste of that, but still be able to tour it around pretty easily and cheaply.
And what do you hope to accomplish with it? What are you hoping to leave your audiences with?
Well, I mean, I guess with everything that's happening with climate change and the really intense, I mean, they're starting to call this time that we're living in the sixth mass extinction, but we've all heard this, and it's really hard to hear that stuff over and over and over. So it's really, sometimes it can be tough to even let that stuff in, because you start getting I guess people have called it like empathy fatigue or something like that. And I don't really want to be scaring people or pounding my fist on the desk. I'm trying to lure people in to thinking about these stories, thinking about how these animals have intersected with us, with people, and thinking about how our myths kind of determine how we think about these animals, and that, whether we like it or not, ends up it determines how we legislate, how we manage those animals. And but I'm trying to get people also connected with a sense of wonder and a sense of I mean, a lot of these shows that we're doing, they're funny. There's a lot of comedy involved. There's moments that are very, just kind of storytelling. But then there's also moments that don't have any words at all, that are almost abstract, sort of those moments that you might feel if you're all alone in the woods or up on top of the mountain and you don't have anybody around. And what's that like? Those sort of moments that are beyond language, outside of your. So I guess it's just trying to get all kinds of parts of your brain firing and get your whole body into it, because I think if you think about a lot of our body has a lot of information that isn't necessarily about logic, and so it's just trying to get people really invested in a moment and get them maybe thinking about how they connect with that bigger, broader world, even if they are in suburbia or even downtown. Why does things happening in wildlands matter to everybody? And just trying to find ways of doing that that's not pounding my chest and has my fist in the air, but it's serious, but it's kind of doing it in a very playful way, I guess.
So it's engaging people, but not just engaging in information, in feelings and in visions and in, I think that's so important, because I think so much of the dialogue has been either scientific or political. And we aren't either of those. There's so much more. We're very complex, aren't we?
Sure.
Yeah. So, I would like to know how do you start with an animal? Okay, you're just starting on bears. So, what does that mean to you? What do you want to know and understand about bears that helps you with this creative process?
Well, I guess first of all, the animals that I've been picking in the beginning are what a lot of scientists and fundraisers would call charismatic megafauna.
Yep.
So you're starting with animals that are sort of the stars of our zoos, the stars of our cartoons and fairy tales. So monkey, elephant, wolf, and now lions and tigers and bears. And a lot of times these animals they have a lot of family life. They often spend a lot of time with raising their kids, kind of just sort of like us. And so it's sort of using that as a way to get some momentum to the project, the lifelong thing, and then at a certain point, maybe we'll end up doing a bacteria or something like that. But we're just kind of starting with the ones that people can really sink their teeth into at first. But I guess for me, when I did Wolf, the first thing I started out reading was a lot of technical scientific data, and it was not the way to start for me. It was good to know, but it took a long time to kind of finally get rolling on the whole research, and then eventually I ended up coming to more of the stories and the fairy tales, and but also stories of biologists and wildlife managers and what they have going in their day-to-day world, because this is pretty intense stuff going on. So with there, I'm doing it the other way around. I'm starting by reading a lot of the myths and creation myths and legends about bears, but then also doing a lot of interviewing, like just talking to different people that are involved with bears, and then it's just kind of like not trying to keep as open as I can for as long as possible, and taking pictures of all sorts of bears and popular culture and cartoons, and just gathering lots of information and seeing what strange connections end up happening with all these different things. And then I'll start bringing it to the people I collaborate with, which include my wife, who's a choreographer, dancer, and then a good friend, Chris Peck, who does a lot of sound work with us, and a lot of composing, musical stuff. And then we'll start bringing it out to those guys and see what they kind of have to respond to all the stuff I've been reading. And we'll go from there.
Have all of your presentations been in the basic Champaign-Urbana area? Have you done something far afield like here? Is it even a possibility that we could lure you here for a presentation here?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. It's the presentation here would probably be it would be an iteration or I think the thing that I like doing in Champaign-Urbana is the time we spend at all these different sites. There's a lot of time that goes in. So it's kind of going out and visiting sites, visiting these different places, and then coming home and thinking about it and talking with each other and maybe letting it bubble for a couple of months and then doing it again and seeing what other sorts of ideas come up. And
it's very iterative.
Yeah. And then from that biggish run that we'll do, things spin off out of that, smaller, more tourable ones. But again, it's early in this big long project, and it would be, I mean, just seeing. We walked. Suzanne took me around the ranch yesterday. We walked down to the river. We walked over by the dance hall, kind of down through the woods a little bit, and it's there's pastures, there's horses, there's a lot that's possible, and it's so it's just kind of like excuse me.
That's Miss Gertie. She's not the center of attention. She wants you to know you should be interviewing her. And she's voting for donkeys for D.
Donkeys for D.
Donkeys for D.
Very good. Very good.
So you have one vote for donkeys for D.
Okay, good. We'll have to do that down in the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, part of it is just sort of finding, I mean, some of it is finding out how much money we can raise and what sort of equipment is going to be possible and what the site has, kind of responding to the site of what's there and how that might tie in with a particular animal. So, again, it gets back to the how does the research happen, and part of that is thinking about the place itself and what sort of connections does that place have, even historically, what sorts of things have happened in Lolo, in 1700,
this is Travelers Rest with Lewis and Clark. This
is
one of the few places that they can't both coming and going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's one of the few places that's been actually documented that they know where they're camped.
Wow.
And they did it there are two indicators. There's a button. They found a button. And they also found mercury in the latrine. And, that mercury was used throughout the expedition, to purge. People had constipation because all they ate was meat. They didn't really have any vegetable matter. So it's right close to us. In fact, our ranch was at one time incorrectly identified as Travelers Rest. They have a brass plaque that says this is the site of the Lewis and Clark Travelers Rest.
Oh, wow.
And what was interesting about that is one day I had a man just drive down the driveway and knock on the door. I said, I hear this is Travelers Rest. And I said, well, we do have a plaque. He said, yes, you're on the historical map. And I said, oh, that's great. I'll show you the plaque. So I went to show him the plaque. And during the conversation, I realized he was from Alaska, and he worked with a really good friend of mine. So I said, well, you have to take a picture of me with the plaque and then go back and tell my friend, I think this crazy lady down there. It was fun. Yeah, it was kind of one of those odd coincidences.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
But there's a deep history here. And sports bears are, there's a big history here. I mean, this is a school, University of Montana, Grizzlies. And, the Craighead brothers, I don't know if you know of them, but they got this start here in Missoula. A lot of interest in bears in Missoula. Mm-hmm. It's a community that cares a lot about it, and there's the largest concentration in the lower 48 of bears. Grizzly bears, not black bears. Yeah, the grizzly bears. I think Pennsylvania has the largest density, and New Jersey. A black bear. The black bears are, they live right under your deck. They had a dance. Pretty ubiquitous. Yeah. So when you talk about bears, are you thinking in terms of there are 7 bear species in the world? So 3 of them are in North America, but you have those that are outside of North America. So are you thinking broadly and thinking about the speckled bear and the sun bear and the
I think it's
polar bear?
Definitely polar bears. I mean, there it is.
Oh yeah.
But I think it's the speckled bear, and it's like I think they're probably going to be part of the thinking of the whole thing. But it's also trying to figure out how to get the stories to connect with the people of here, or
right.
People are going to have like you said, there's a much deeper history of that than it is about the speckled bear.
Right.
So
right.
It's trying to find the connection of the animal that's closest by, and I mean with if I'm doing elephant in Illinois, it doesn't seem like, well, what's the connection there? But the connection was mammoth. They were here 3,000 years ago, but also like a really interesting and often sad history of elephants and circuses and zoos in the state. And so we ended up going to Thailand to, like I said, to go to this Mahout training course up in Chiang Mai. But I also went up to Elkton, South Dakota, which a friend of mine, his family had a circus based in Iowa in the late 1800s, and the elephant trainer with them was doing a bit of drinking, and the elephant really didn't like this. It was a blizzard in South Dakota, sort of a freak mid-May blizzard, and the trainer was knocking the elephant around a little bit, and the elephants really don't like this. And he just went after the keeper, destroyed this whole circus train, and basically went on the rampage and was brought down by the townspeople. It took 9 hours to bring him down. It's a really sad story. But it's so trying to find these stories that are based in the Midwest or in the U.S. and just finding how did that elephant end up in a blizzard in South Dakota.
So I have to tell an elephant story. Do you
Please,
mind?
absolutely.
In the 60s, in Anchorage, Alaska, there was a grocer. Maybe it was the 70s. I'm not exactly sure of the timing, but before I got to Alaska, and I got to Alaska in the early 70s, right? There was a grocer in Anchorage who had a contest, and the winner of the contest got to select the prize, and as a joke, he put down an elephant. Well, the guy selected the elephant, and so he ended up having to find an elephant, and he found what was an incorrigible elephant that had been passed from zoo to zoo in Portland, and sent the animal to Anchorage. And the animal ended up in a horse barn. And this is where the reason I know all this is I had horses at that barn. Okay? And because they had this elephant, the woman who owned the horse barn kept, wondering what was going to happen with all these people coming to visit the elephants and the liability issues and all of that. And so she incorporated it as a zoo. And that was the start of the Alaska Zoo, with this one elephant. And that elephant lived, 25 more years. It was still in Anchorage when I left in the late 90s. And they started a companion, although one was an African elephant and one was an Asian elephant. And they built a very nice elephant facility for them. And it was really interesting to watch this community evolve from recognizing this was, the wrong thing to do for an elephant. It was the wrong thing to start a zoo in Alaska that had such things as elephants. But it did turn out to be, that the people behind it ultimately transitioned into a zoo of only Arctic animals.
Uh-huh.
And they do take a lot of animals that have been misplaced or displaced, not misplaced, it's not such thing as misplaced, that's well, I guess, but displaced for a variety of reasons. And it's actually a nice quality zoo. It's really grown up. But its beginning was this elephant.
Oh, wow.
And I have lots of stories of riding horses in a barn that had an elephant.
That's fantastic.
Isn't that an interesting story?
And was this the African or the Asian elephant?
This was the Asian elephant, I believe. Yeah, right. And they had a very big indoor area for it to keep it out of the weather, and also a very nice outside area. And the elephant took the paintings. They sold paintings to raise money for the zoo. But it was quite the attraction. The beginnings of the Alaska Zoo there's lots of stories, and there are bear stories as well. Dinky, the polar bear. Dinky, At first the zoo was not, was pretty, I don't know if it was accredited by the zoos or not, but it was pretty laid back. And twice tourists got into Dinky's cage, and there was a great picture of, in fact, I have a piece of jewelry that shows Dinky walking around with a tennis shoe hanging out of its mouth. Ooh, right. the teenage visitor did escape, but not with his shoes. And the Anchorage Daily News said, Alaska polar bear 1, tourist 0. And then about 3 years later, it was Alaska polar bear 2, tourist 0. Oh. And at that point, they recognized they better do something about security.
Yeah. Well, I just got done reading a book about polar bears, and one of the things they were saying, that one fun fact that that I guess they have to be careful of is so they're super comfortable in water. They're actually
they're marine mammals.
They're marine mammals, exactly.
I managed for a while the science for National Wildlife Federation in Anchorage for their marine mammal program, which consisted of 3 species of polar bears in one of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the thing that I could not get out of my head was when zoo designers are thinking about building a polar bear enclosure, one of the things they have to be very careful about is porpoising. Is they can leap out of the water from just a swimming start. They can get 104 inches above the water line, which is, that's almost 9 feet out of the water. So I mean, when I think about like me swimming and trying to pop out of the water, I can barely get my shoulders out. And so here's this, 1,200-pound bear getting most of its body out of the water, and they're worried about this, so they need to make sure that the walls are that high so they can't just pop over the top.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
There are lots of good Alaska stories about polar bears. We also had a friend who trained a dog to smell for seals under the eyes. And so, of course, dogs are much better than people, but bears are way better than dogs. I mean, polar bears, and that's one of the reasons they can, of course, is they can come right out of the water to catch their prey. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty amazing. Yeah, polar bears they're pretty incredible. We've had, my husband has participated in radio calling polar bears.
Okay.
And we've been to Churchill and seen polar bears. Of course, in Alaska, there are polar bears. But, yeah, they're very, very different from black bears. Very, very different. Whole different breed of cat. Yeah. What a fascinating thing you're doing. I love this mixture of science and myths and stories and the way humans integrate all of that into the way they perceive animals. And you're so right. It's so important. And I want to get you to talk a little bit about what's important to our audience, the ospreys, that we've all come to know on an individual basis. And I have to say that one of the most wonderful thing about these web cameras is you really begin to understand that each bird is an individual with their own pattern of behavior and their own way of doing things, just like humans. For so long we were so arrogant. We thought that, a deer was a deer was a deer, or a bird was a bird was a bird. And once you watch their day-to-day family life, I mean, any one of the people watching today could give you, could write an essay on the female personality that lives here versus the female that's at the Hellgate nest, which also has a web camera. And I'm just thrilled by how this brings about those two worlds, the scientific world and our world of understanding on an individual basis, because it's one thing to read about the osprey, and there you read about populations, you read about the biology, you don't read about an individual. In fact, we as scientists have been taught to, divorce ourselves from the sentimental world because they don't want our personal feelings influencing our data collection and our data analysis, and that's absolutely correct. But you can't tell the story of the animals without the sentimental, without the emotional and the feelings, as much as it is important as the data and the biological understanding and all of that. I think these web cameras have been fabulous in that regard.
Yeah, all the camera trap stuff is amazing. Like all the technology is really cracking open a whole different kind of look at the lives of these creatures. You know, they're like they just track the through a GPS collar. They track the mountain lion that travel from Colorado to Connecticut, and it's like, wow. Yeah, crazy. Right?
You think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you just thought about it without all of the human interactions that must have happened along the way. I mean, if you just thought about it geographically, that's huge. But when you think about all that lion had to encounter and navigate and all the challenges.
Right.
I mean, it's just, yeah. It's huge.
Yeah, and then the webcam that about
here's one of our birds, by the way. Behind you. He's fishing.
Yeah.
That's an adult.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks. I wish I could turn the camera and show you. I know you'd like to. They're going to all have to come and visit sometime. So, for us, you reckon? Can you put another plug in here?
Oh, definitely put in the plug for sure.
For Osprey?
Yeah. Well, it used to be like there was one summer, I think I told you, one summer I was taking people down the Snake River in Jackson Hole, and that was always part of the. I mean, because that section of the river didn't have rapids, so it was a lot of. And there would always be this bank of stories about the osprey. As you come around the bank, there they are. Yeah. There they are up on that corner.
Yeah.
Geez,
and they're a success story in terms of population. They're one of the things we got right.
Right.
You know, cause when I was a child, growing up in Montana, osprey were rare. There were bald eagles.
Yeah, DDT.
Right, DDT. And the other cool thing about osprey, I'm going to give you my sales pitch for osprey.
Yeah.
They occur in every continent except Antarctica. And I think that that's such a unifying thing for people, that I can talk about osprey, and people in Africa know what I'm talking about, in Australia, in Asia. I love the fact that we're all, enamored with this one species of bird.
Yeah. Oh, they're great.
Yeah. Good. Well, I'm going to run in and check to see if they have questions. I've tried to get a technology where I can bring my little iPad out to see the questions out here, and we're working on that. Part of the problem is it's really hard to see, and I don't even try to do that anymore. So, it's part of the technology. It's my old eyes. But let me go and see, and so I can ask you. Okay?
Sounds good.
have any specific questions, the people are hoping that you'll stay connected. They love stories, and they'd like to hear more of the stories. So let's figure out a way that we can continue this dialogue as your project proceeds. It could be a long time. That's great. I'd love it.
Sounds good. I'm really happy to be in contact. Sounds great.
Okay, good. Well, this is May. Goodbye.
So,
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Talk then.